What change will this wind bring?
Hey everyone, this is Scrap Peter here. This video is going to be covering which champions I generally don't think you should be playing until you get around gold. The reason for this video is me basically seeing a lot of lower level players picking up Azir, Zed and Nivea and feeling pretty heavily as they don't have enough mechanical skills or prowess or even just enough knowledge to pull them off. From here, I basically told a player, an example, who played these exact three champions to play Annie. Straight up just play Annie. And he stomped the next 3 games with simple base mechanics. I believe you should stick to the champions that work on the core mechanics of the game and build yourself up progressively rather than trying to master some of the hardest champions in the game. So, let's get into it. Anivia. The bird has a very weak laning phase. This means you can be bullied and slapped around in lane quite easily. Weak lanes are hard to deal with for most of the lower tier players, so I would advise generally ignoring them. On top of this, her pre-6 CSing is one of the worst in the entire game. One of the main problems with mid laners is their lack of ability to be able to CS. From here, Anivia is generally immobile, and her lane can just lead to further problems if you get ganked or if you're versus a mobile target. Anivia's kit generally requires a little bit of finesse. You have to land the Q before you hit your E pre-6, which of course is a combo. The combo, if you miss one, you miss both, which can be hard if not impossible to land versus mobile opponents. At 6, she needs to cast her ultimate E combo and again try and land that Q, which can be a tiny bit fiddly. Due to her lack of mobility, she has to kite almost perfectly with all of her abilities, which can be difficult if you haven't got a large amount of mechanical and game knowledge. Now, most importantly, Anivia's wall can make or break her. If you misplace the wall, you can kill your entire team, or of course save the enemy one. Anivia needs some sort of protection, which again in bronze and silver is a little bit hard to get. Azir. I personally believe this guy is in the top 10% of champions that are, in terms of difficulty, nearly impossible to pull off. Azir's entire kit is based off soldier management based upon max range least auto attacks. That's a mouthful. His Q and W are extremely hard to both place and generally utilize. Even professional players can make the odd mistake, which is why I say he's nearly impossible to pull off. Knowing the max range of your soldier's leash and auto-attacking while kiting at the same time is extremely difficult for most, even really good players, never mind someone who's just learning the game. His E is again extremely difficult to generally use. Knowing when to go aggressive is hard as hell. Azir's ultimate can be one of the best split and general disruption tools in the game, or even pick tools, if you position yourself to use it. Again, most Azir players at a lowish level basically don't have an ultimate because they simply can't use it correctly. You have to be able to kite, punish, position soldiers perfectly, and that simply won't happen if the player has not got a lot of just general experience. Pulling this guy off requires an extremely good player, and personally I don't think in bronze or silver it's really obtainable at all. Cassiopeia. First up, she's immobile and has a medium range. This can lead to many issues, safety being the main one. Teams at lower levels just won't be able to help you kite or escape or just protect you, which of course is gonna just generally lead to you dying a lot. In bronze and silver you just can't rely on lots of tanks and peel for yourself. Most of Cass's damage in addition to this relies on a poison system. This means she's heavily skill shot orientated. If you miss that Q and W, you literally won't get any E resets, which basically means you have less damage than most other carries, if not all of them. As Cass, you have to kite perfectly and know how to position with the best of them. This is a hard task to do for every player, which is merely exacerbated at lower levels of play with no protection. Cass is based upon sustained DPS, poisoning and perfect combos. A single mistake in any of these features, any of them at all, will leave Cass dead or not doing enough damage in general. She needs a good performance about 90% of the time. If you can't do this, avoid playing Cassiopeia. Oriana. Much like Azir, Oriana requires good placement orientation. Oriana completely revolves around her ball, or well, literally it revolves around her, but you get what I mean. Any Oriana has to place the ball in a good to perfect position. You simply put can't rely on a newish or just a player with lack of experience to do this properly. If you can't place your ball and understand where your enemy is or your enemy will be, you'll never be able to pull off your ultimate or of course your W. As most of your damage comes from these sources, you have to be good, you have to position it well. A note to this is that you can always use a host to your ball with command protect, but with this you need to rely on another person at an equal skill level, and this again is just a little flawed in my opinion. I generally just think you should avoid any placement orientated champion at this level. You can't rely on the host, you can't rely on even yourself to position the ball. Just stick to basic skill shots, and then after that you can transcend into orientated placement. But for the most part, try and avoid this champion until you get a little bit better. Yasuo. His kit is all about outplaying, timing, and making dem plays. As Yasuo, if you can't outplay your enemy, you will straight up die. If you can avoid at least 50% of the skill shots, if not all of them, the game's basically over. Yasuo has to outplay all abilities, time his wind wall perfectly, and not miss a single Q while jumping around like a madman. This reliance in having a good performance is just too mental and just too much for most lowish level players. This guy has to be on point and generally requires a decently high amount of mechanical skill, and it's mainly mechanical. You should be focusing on the base mechanics in the mid lane. Don't try and play these champions without first mastering the core. If you get behind Yasuo and you play him, you're not going to do very well. If you get behind on the champion in general, unless you have a good knockup comp, you're going to be literally useless as you can't dive in because you're a squishy melee. And even then, if you even get a knockup with a knockup comp, you're merely going to be used for your CC and your ultimate, which is not beneficial. He's not forgiving to being behind at all, so be very careful, and that's generally the reason why I don't want anyone playing this champion at lower levels. Katarina. No, yes, this champion can stomp below ELO if you know how to play her. Katarina's kit is simple, but the timing on her laning phase is not. First up, in the lane she is wrecked by nearly every player. If you don't know how to play safe or take advantage of an enemy player's mistake, she will be dumpstered in the laning phase hands down, if your enemy even slightly knows what to do. The laning phase is about knowledge and openings rather than mechanics. This is similar to their teamfight phase. The sheer amount of timing, CC cataloging, and positioning is extremely difficult to manage in Katarina. Most people talk Katarina down, but in all honesty, she's hard to pull off in a tight teamfight if you don't have any openings. Of course, if you get ahead and your team's ahead, yes, you can smash your head off the keyboard and kill basically everyone. But in a tight team, or if you're behind, that's hard to pull off. On top of all this, Kat is maybe one of the worst champions in the game when behind. She provides no CC, not much damage, and generally can't even think about diving into the enemy team due to the fact 75% of her kit is melee based and not ranged at all. So, if you get behind, you're useless. If you can't jump in, you can't do anything. She has many disadvantages and is generally hard to pull off if it's even slightly tight in the game. So, I have tried to avoid this if I were you basically. Zed. He's a single target assassin with little CC and can fall behind quite well generally easily. During the laning phase he has to get an early advantage in the form of a kill or at least a roam, which of course would result in a kill. This at the very best of times can be hard to pull off. Without this early advantage, Zed has trouble assassinating basically anyone. If you can't assassinate basically anyone, you're useless. His only use basically is single target assassinations. If behind, this simply can't happen. Basically when behind, this guy is horrible as he provides so little for his team. You can't jump in and get a kill. You can't CC your enemy. You can't even barely just do anything. What's the point of him playing then? The skill cap on this champion is a pretty steep curve. Although the basics are not too much of a struggle to master, generally actually truly getting the grips of this guy and truly 100% mastering him could take 50, even 100 games for certain players. Too high of a skill cap and too much risk. Try to avoid him until you get very, very good at the basics. Fizz. Lastly, another single target assassin. Now he's basically the same as Zed. Little CC or damage if he falls behind, can't dive into the enemy team or he'll just get blown up. If he can't get a kill, he can't do much. Falls behind too easily. Not much else to be said about this champion, again it's all previously mentioned. A note to this video, yes, all of these champions can stomp in low levels and do very well. But if the player has been in bronze or silver for over a month and playing these champions, they're clearly beyond the player's current skill level. These champions fall behind and can't do anything beyond and just have no base utility. Having massive mechanical curves or finally require massive amounts of mechanical knowledge, all of which or any one of them can generally just make it a little bit out of reach for a lower echelon of play. This is not me talking crap about bronze and silver. I'm merely giving a list which I believe they should not be playing, instead be working on those core game skills to increase their win rates. Trying to pull off Zed, trying to pull off Azir is kind of difficult until you get pretty good mechanically. But in bronze or silver, you're still learning the basics, you're still trying to get better. So at that point, I advise the Annie pick, I advise the simple picks that just do well no matter what happens basically. And that's it for the guide, guys. If you like it, dislike it, dislike it. If you like the content, subscribe, or if you hate it and think it's garbage, you can unsub. I'm totally fair. Besides this, guys, as always, have a great day and best of luck in the Rift.